Alex never imagined his life would implode because of a single envelope slipped under his door. Inside was a restraining order filed by his girlfriend, Tiffany, accusing him of emotional and financial abuse. The so-called evidence was nothing more than a few messages where he asked why her spending had suddenly doubled. He didn't argue, didn't plead, didn't defend himself. Instead, he took a deep breath and decided to comply with the order exactly as written. And the moment he did, something shifted. Everything Tiffany had built her comfort on, every luxury, every bill she never paid, every account she used under his name, began to collapse in real time. Alex stepped back, silent and steady, watching the first domino fall. He knew Tiffany thought the restraining order would corner him. She had no idea she had just handed him the perfect legal exit. When Alex read the restraining order for the second time, he felt a strange calm settle over him. If Tiffany wanted all contact severed, then that was exactly what she would get. He sat down at his desk, opened his laptop, and began closing every door she had once walked through so freely. The first step was the credit cards. For years, Tiffany had spent on the platinum card Alex provided, using it for everything from groceries to designer handbags. With a few clicks, he canceled all of them, watching the confirmation messages pop up one after another. He imagined Tiffany trying to pay for something later that day, only for the card to decline in front of everyone. He didn't feel guilty. She had insisted on the separation. He was simply respecting it. 72 hours after Alex cut every financial tie, his phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. He considered ignoring it, but something told him to answer. When he picked up, a tense male voice introduced himself as Tiffany's attorney. The man cleared his throat awkwardly before getting to the point. He said there seemed to be misunderstandings surrounding the restraining order, and that Tiffany was struggling without the financial support she had previously received. He asked if Alex would be willing to temporarily resume assistance while they worked on adjusting the terms. Alex almost laughed. He reminded the attorney, calmly and politely, that he was legally prohibited from providing anything to Tiffany. He even quoted the section from the order word for word. The lawyer hesitated, clearly realizing he had walked himself into a corner. He muttered something about reviewing the document again and hung up abruptly. A few days later, Alex opened his phone to find dozens of notifications from social media. At first, he assumed they were more messages from Tiffany's circle. But when he clicked on one of the tags, he realized something new was happening. One of Tiffany's closest friends, a woman named Brooke, had posted a long, dramatic rant accusing him of systematically financially abusing Tiffany. The post was written in a fiery tone, complete with screenshots meant to expose Alex. Except the screenshots did the exact opposite. Brooke had posted snippets of Tiffany's messages where she bragged about using Alex's money. One screenshot showed Tiffany laughing about blowing $500 on makeup because Alex won't notice. Another showed her complaining that he asked why her spending doubled in a month. And another revealed Tiffany admitting she didn't need half the things she bought. She just liked the thrill of seeing the delivery boxes pile up. Within minutes, the comments under Brooke's post shifted from sympathy to skepticism. People started questioning the narrative. Some pointed out that nothing in the screenshots showed abuse, only entitlement. Others noted that if Tiffany had real evidence, she wouldn't need to rely on her friends to defend her. The thread was slowly turning into a public disaster. Meanwhile, Alex received a message from the property manager of Tiffany's building. They informed him that Tiffany had failed to provide updated proof of income. Without Alex as guarantor, her application was suspended, and she was now required to submit financial documents to keep her lease. Alex knew she couldn't. Her job paid inconsistently, and she had relied on his monthly support to keep herself afloat. Losing the apartment wasn't a matter of if anymore, it was a matter of when. As the online backlash grew, Tiffany's friends scrambled to do damage control. Some tried deleting comments. Others begged people to focus on the emotional abuse instead of the financial part. But the internet had latched onto the inconsistencies. People began finding old posts Tiffany had made flaunting luxury items, expensive trips, and weekly spa appointments. The story she was trying to sell, that she was a struggling victim, was unraveling quickly. Alex watched it all unfold from a distance. He didn't comment, didn't defend himself, didn't send a single message. He simply observed the storm build and break on its own. He was surprised by how little emotion he felt. Not satisfaction, not anger, just a quiet understanding that this was inevitable. Late that evening, Alex got a text from a mutual friend who had stayed out of the drama. It read, "She's panicking. She didn't think anything would hit her this fast." He didn't reply. He simply closed the message and put his phone down. The next morning, Brooke deleted her post entirely. But the damage was already done. People had saved screenshots. Comments had circulated. Other users were now discussing Tiffany's spending habits openly. Her online reputation was beginning to collapse, much like the rest of her life. As Alex sipped his coffee and skimmed through the chaos, he realized that the truth had a way of surfacing without him lifting a finger. He hadn't exposed Tiffany. Her own circle had done it for him. And this was only the beginning of the fallout she never saw coming. While the chaos on social media continued to spiral, something far more serious was happening behind the scenes. Alex learned about it when he received an unexpected call from the leasing office of Tiffany's building. The manager said they had received a signed document from him, confirming that he would continue as guarantor despite withdrawing earlier. Alex froze. He hadn't signed anything. The manager emailed him a copy, and the moment he opened the attachment, he felt a surge of disbelief. The signature at the bottom was supposed to be his, but it looked nothing like it. Someone had forged his name. Without her mother to shield her, and without Alex's financial support, Tiffany's life began to crumble at a pace she couldn't control. The first blow came when her car disappeared from the parking lot outside her building. At first, she thought it had been stolen. But when she called the towing company, they informed her it had been repossessed for 4 months of missed payments. She argued, screamed, demanded they release it, but none of it mattered. The paperwork showed the debt in her name alone. Alex was no longer attached to anything. That same afternoon, her credit card apps began sending her alerts. Declines. More declines. She attempted to buy groceries, then gas, then even a coffee, and every transaction was rejected. When she logged into her accounts, she saw that every card was maxed out. She had spent thousands in the span of 3 days in a frantic attempt to regain control. Clothes, electronics, skincare, impulse purchases. A panic spiral converted into financial self-destruction. And when she tried contacting the banks to raise her limits, they refused. Her income couldn't justify anything. In a final attempt to salvage her image, Tiffany launched a GoFundMe campaign with a dramatic story about being a victim of covert financial abuse. She wrote that she was left homeless, carless, and emotionally shattered by an unstable partner. The fundraiser gained traction for a few hours, until people online recognized her from Brooke's deleted post. Screenshots resurfaced. Old comments. Luxury shopping hauls. Vacations. Her narrative fell apart instantly. GoFundMe removed the campaign for misrepresentation, and the donations were refunded. For the first time, Tiffany couldn't hide behind curated social media posts. Everyone could see through her. The humiliation only deepened when her father, Robert, unexpectedly called Alex. His voice was tired, almost defeated. He apologized on behalf of Tiffany and Linda, admitting he had seen this behavior before. Years ago, Linda had tried similar financial manipulation during their divorce, opening accounts in his name, using his credit, forging documents. He told Alex he wished he had recognized the pattern sooner. Alex listened quietly, unsure how to respond. Robert didn't ask for favors. He didn't ask Alex to reach out to Tiffany. He simply said, "You didn't deserve any of this." Meanwhile, Tiffany's situation deteriorated rapidly. Her landlord issued a formal notice. Without proof of income or a guarantor, she had 30 days to vacate. She tried appealing, begging, even threatening to expose the building for mistreating a domestic violence survivor. But the management had already seen the fraud investigation involving her mother. They had no interest in extending sympathy. By the end of the week, Tiffany's friends stopped calling. Some blocked her to avoid being dragged into legal trouble. Others simply didn't want to be associated with the now public mess. The people who had once hyped her lifestyle and cheered on her spending had vanished. Late one night, Tiffany sat alone in her half-packed apartment, surrounded by clothes she couldn't sell for even half their price. Her savings were gone. Her cards were useless. Her car was gone. Her mother was facing charges. Her reputation was in shambles. And through it all, Alex hadn't done a single thing to her. He hadn't said a word, filed a complaint, or taken revenge. Everything happening to her was the direct result of her own decisions colliding with reality. And for the first time in her life, there was no one left to blame but herself. Tiffany's desperation reached a breaking point after the eviction notice hit her mailbox. Days of panic had hollowed her out, and the isolation was suffocating. She felt cornered in a way she had never experienced before. Her calls to friends went unanswered. Her texts were left on read. The world that once revolved around her had spun away. In her panic, she convinced herself that the only person who could fix everything was Alex's family. If she couldn't reach Alex, maybe she could sway the people close to him. Late one evening, she dialed the number of Alex's mother. The older woman answered with confusion, then concern, then firm disapproval as Tiffany stumbled through a shaky plea for help. Alex's mother reminded her that contact of any kind was prohibited and ended the call. But Tiffany's panic had already eclipsed common sense. She convinced herself that if she could just see Alex face to face, explain her side, he would rescue her. It didn't matter that she was violating a court order. She believed she could talk her way through anything. The next morning, Tiffany appeared at the lobby of Alex's office building. Security approached her immediately, asking her to leave. She insisted she only needed 5 minutes. She tried pushing past them, raising her voice as employees watched awkwardly from a distance. Someone called the police. By the time officers arrived, Tiffany was mid-rant, shouting about how Alex had ruined her life and how she deserved answers. The officers reminded her of the restraining order. She continued yelling. She was arrested on the spot for violating the order she had filed herself. The entire incident was caught on building cameras. News traveled fast. Within hours, a local journalist reached out to Linda, who was already drowning in her own legal problems. Despite her attorney advising silence, Linda saw the attention as an opportunity. She organized a small press gathering outside her home, trying to paint Tiffany as a victim of an unjust system and Alex as a manipulator hiding behind legal loopholes. But the moment reporters started asking questions about her pending charges for forgery and identity theft, the event collapsed. Linda grew defensive, then evasive, then visibly shaken as journalists pressed harder. Clips of the disastrous exchange hit social media before the day ended. People mocked the contradictions, the rehearsed outrage, the false bravado. Meanwhile, Tiffany faced a new reality. With an arrest on her record, her chances of finding housing were almost non-existent. Property managers ran background checks, saw the violation and the financial red flags, and rejected her instantly. She couch-hopped for a few days until even those offers ran out. Finally, with nowhere else to go, she returned to her mother's cramped apartment, a place she once swore she'd never live in again. Days blurred into each other. Tiffany applied for part-time jobs she thought were beneath her. Some places turned her away because of her attitude. Others turned her away because of her record. Her new boyfriend, overwhelmed by the chaos, began distancing himself. She started relying on him the same way she had relied on Alex, but this time the support was thinner, weaker, already cracking. Every path Tiffany tried to take forward circled back to the same truth. The restraining order she had weaponized had backfired with surgical precision. The privileges she once took for granted were gone. The reputation she curated so carefully was shattered. And the man she tried to control had walked away without raising his voice, without breaking a rule, without lifting a finger against her. For the first time, Tiffany understood that consequences are not always delivered by enemies. Sometimes they are the shadow cast by your own actions, following you until there is nowhere left to run. Tiffany eventually realized that the chaos she blamed on everyone else had grown from choices she refused to acknowledge. Days became quieter, not because life improved, but because she finally stopped trying to outrun the truth. She accepted that no one was coming to rescue her, no loophole would erase her mistakes, and no amount of blaming would reverse the damage she caused. In that silence, she recognized the cost of every lie, every impulsive act, every attempt to manipulate the narrative. Alex, meanwhile, rebuilt his routine with a calm she could no longer disrupt. He focused on work, reconnected with friends, and allowed himself to breathe without waiting for the next conflict. The restraining order faded into the background of his life, a reminder of a storm he had survived. Tiffany's journey forward became slower, heavier, but finally honest. She started taking responsibility in small, reluctant steps. She stopped calling old acquaintances, stopped rewiring stories to cast herself as the wounded hero, and began confronting the parts of herself she once avoided. There was no dramatic redemption, no triumphant return, only the quiet possibility of change. And for the first time, that was enough.